Buddhist Education in Ancient India. Hello and welcome to the session Buddhist Education in Ancient India. Introduction to the concept of Buddhism. Buddhism began with the life of Siddhartha Gautama, a prince from the small Shakya kingdom. Brought up in luxury, the prince abandoned his home and wandered forth as a religious beggar, searching for the meaning of existence. He was a practitioner of intense austerity, at one point almost starving to death. But in later stage, he realized that self-torture doesn't help to achieve enlightenment, but only it weakens his mind. So he started some advanced meditation techniques. Eventually, he became successful in his mission. It is said that under a tree in the forest of Gaya, he achieved enlightenment. And finally, he managed to find the four noble truths. They are: first, all of life is suffering. The cause of suffering is desire. The end of desire leads to the end of suffering. And the means to end desire is a path of discipline and meditation. And after this enlightenment, he is known as Buddha, or the awakened one. And the rest of his life he dedicated to the world, and by traveling about northeast India, he converted large number of disciples. At the age of 80, the Buddha achieved his final passing away and died, leaving a thriving monastic order and a dedicated lay community to continue his work. By the 3rd century BC, a religion developed based on Buddha's teachings and spread throughout South Asia with the help from the Mauryan Empire. By the 17th century AD, Buddhism became one of the largest religions in the world. Indian royalty and merchants encouraged this religion, and they built so many monasteries in reverence to Buddha's memory. The monastery complex of Nalanda in Bihar was a world center for Buddhist philosophy and religion until the 18th century. As a religion, Buddhism addresses the true nature of our existence and offers means by which human sufferings may be transcended. The reduction of Buddhist morals into a series of numbered lessons make them easier to remember and recite. Some of the Buddhist morals are cited below. Eightfold Path. It leads to nirvana according to Buddhist thinking. This is a middle path that avoiding extremes. First, the right knowledge. This relates to the right way of viewing the world. The right thought. The right intention to lead a good life. The right speech. To be truthful, avoid harsh language, gossip or boasting. The right action or conduct, to avoid unethical behavior. The right livelihood, choosing an occupation which does not profit from the suffering of others. The right effort or the right frame of mind to overcome evil or unwholesome things. The right mindfulness, being aware of oneself and one's emotions. The right concentration, concentration of mind achieved through meditation. The three treasurer or jewels. Salutation to these three entities forms a basis of meditation for many Buddhists: the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. The Five Precepts. The Five Precepts is a code of moral conduct for laypersons for everyday life. Do not kill any living things. Do not engage in sexual misconduct. Avoid wrong speech. Do not lie, gossip, or speak poorly of others. Do not use intoxicating substances, alcohol, or recreational drugs. Do not steal or take anything which does not belong to you. Do not allow any person to profit from the suffering of any other living species. Buddhism as a religion appealed to the masses because of its simplicity. It rejected ritualism, sacrifices, and dominance of priestly classes. Buddhist viharas were used for education purposes. Nalanda, Vikramshila, Takshashila, Udanpuri, Vallabhi, and other cities developed as a high Buddhist learning centers. The four current types of Buddhism. Today, four types of Buddhism are there in practice. Religious Buddhism. It can be witnessed in temples in Taiwan. It does not represent the real Buddhism. Second one is the academic Buddhism, which is being taught in many universities today. It treats Buddhism purely as a philosophy, especially in Japan. This is also not exactly Buddha's teaching. Third is Buddhism into a cult. This is a total degeneration. This is much more damaging to the public. Finally, the traditional Buddhism, the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni in its true essence. But this is very rare in our age. Module 2, Buddhism as an education. We all know that the most effective way to convey the message of the Buddha to the world is the method of education. Buddhism is not something esoteric and mystic. It has nothing to hide, as the Buddha says. The more one elaborates, the more it shines. Buddha wanted to share his spiritual experiences to the common people in the world. So far that he adopted a very powerful method of education known as gradual method. The teaching method introduced by Buddha to the field of education is still highly utilized in the system of modern education. Buddha first started his teaching career wandering from house to house, village to village, and street to street. Then he founded his centers of education in the monasteries such as Veluvanarama in Rajagraha and Jetavanarama in Pabarama in Savatthi. It was the starting point of monastic education in the history of education. The goal of Buddhist education is to attain wisdom. In Sanskrit, the Buddhist wisdom was called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, meaning the perfect ultimate wisdom. Buddha says the main objective of our life should be to achieve this wisdom. According to him, everyone has the potential to realize this state of wisdom, as it is an intrinsic part of our nature, not something one obtains externally. As he says, most of us are confused through general misconceptions and therefore are not able to realize the potential. So, if we break through this confusion, we will be able to get in touch with this intrinsic part of our nature. Thus, Buddhism is an educational system aimed at regaining our own intrinsic nature. It also teaches absolute equality, which means there is no inherent difference among beings, as all beings possess the same innate wisdom. Now, everyone seems to be different because we have lost our true nature. The Buddha's teachings help us to realize that innate, perfect, ultimate wisdom. By attaining this, we can solve all our problems and turn suffering into happiness. Due to our lack of wisdom, we think and do foolishly, and later we suffer for all our actions. If we have this wisdom, our thoughts, viewpoints, all will be clear and correct. Then there will be no ill consequences to suffer from. So now we can realize that source of happiness is our own realization of wisdom. The core of Buddha's teachings. Buddha's teaching contains 3 points: discipline, meditation, and wisdom. Wisdom is the goal, and deep meditation is the way towards achieving wisdom. Discipline through observing the precepts is the method that helps one to achieve deep meditation. Wisdom will then be realized naturally. Module 3: Education in Buddhist Monasteries. The main center of Buddhist education was Sangharama, that is monastery or vihara or temple, where monks and samnas reside. Sangharamas were open to all. Here students from different caste, creed, color and religion got free admission. Buddhism was a strong protest against orthodox, Vedic or Hindu religion and also education system. Buddhism established democracy, universalism and monastic life. There was no racial discrimination. After admission, the students had to follow monastic rules along with their syllabus, and they were classified according to merit. The period of education was 12 years. The teachers were the guardian of the students. They were responsible for physical, mental, spiritual and moral development of the students. Since educational institution or monasteries was residential, therefore the relationship between the teachers and the students were very cordial. Buddhist education gave emphasis on the moral, mental and physical development. The main stress was given to have a clear idea of Tripitaka. In the later period, according to the demand of the society and professional education, art, sculpture, architecture, medicine also included in the syllabus. At the initial stage, medium of education was mother tongue. Later, it included Pali and Prakrit, and in the following days, Sanskrit also introduced. It is to be mentioned that Vedic subjects also included in the syllabus. This was a historic development. Sangharamas, their center of Buddhist education, later developed into colleges and universities. Nalanda, Vikramashila, Sampuri, Salban, Pandit Vihar, Takshashila were the unparalleled universities. Students from China, Myanmar, Thailand, Gandhara came to have their studies there. The teachers were highly qualified. The aim of Buddhist education is to make a free man, a wise, intelligent, moral, non-violent and secular man. Students become judicious, humanist, logical and free from superstitions. Students become free from greed, lust and ignorance. Buddhist education was wide open and available to all without any discrimination. The principal goal of Buddhist education is to change an unwise to wise, beast to priest. A teacher in the Buddhist monastery. A teacher in the Buddhist monastery was assigned to with some duties. They had to follow some rules along with the students. The duties of the teachers included imparting education to the students, writing book, propagation of religion, discussion and arrangement of debate for the clarification of serious subjects. The teachers were responsible for physical, mental, spiritual and moral development of the students. Teachers loved the students and helped them in every affair. They also took care of them during their diseases and agony. The teachers were responsible for their food, accommodation, and other necessaries of livelihood. They kept eyes on the all-round development of the students. Especially, they were serious about the strict following of the Sangha rules, meditation, and concentration to their learning. As the monastic life was residential, there was a cordial and healthy relationship between the students and the teachers. Syllabus of the monastic studies. Buddhist education system developed on the basis of some basic principles. This education gave emphasis on the moral, mental, and physical development of the students. The main stress of the study was to have a clear idea of Tripitaka, which consists of Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, and Abhidhamma Pitaka. The entire Tripitaka consists of Buddha's teachings, message, philosophy, and rules for the bhikshus and bhikshunis. At the initial stage, the learning was mainly through the mother tongue or the languages like Pali and Prakrit. Later, Mahayana teachers started teaching Buddhism through Sanskrit. And as a part of the development of education, more subjects like art, sculpture, architecture, and medicine also included in the syllabus. In later stage, the Buddhist educational syllabus included Vedic subjects also. This was a major historic development in Buddhist education in India. Method of teaching in Buddhist monasteries. In early days, teaching was a hearing system. The teachers gave lectures, students heard it and kept it in their memory. In due course, it developed into dialogue and comparison method. The teachers used to teach the students on the basis of telling stories, arranging dialogue. Sometimes debate and discussions were arranged to give idea of the subject matter as well as determination of truth. Subsequently, writing system introduced. At first, there was private and group teachings. Later, it developed into classroom. In due course, Sangharamas developed into residential college and universities. In the history of education, those universities played a major role in the propagation of Buddhism, Buddhist history, art, and culture. In those universities, world-famous scholars like Adisha Dibankar, Sila Brada, Sangarashit were the teachers. Many valuable books were written. We still remember the glory of the universities like Nalanda, Vikramshila, Sambhori, Salban, Jagadal, Pandit Vihar, and Tachshila. The supremacy of those universities was unparalleled. Students from China, Myanmar, Thailand, Gandhara, and all parts of ancient India came to have their education in those universities. Buddhist education is a combination between individual and classroom education. Ajanta and Ellora, famous Buddhist education centers in ancient India. The Ajanta caves served as the residence of the Buddhist monks and religious devotees for more than 800 years. The caves, 30 in number, are said to have witnessed the prosperity as well as the decline of the two sects of Buddhism, the Hinayana and Mahayana. They are adorned with paintings, sculptures, and architecture of both the sects. Ajanta caves signify the transition from the Hinayana sect of Buddhism to the Mahayana sect of Buddhism. The Hinayana sect made use of the stupas and other rock forms to represent Buddha. On the other hand, Mahayana sect used idols. Cave number 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 and 15 belong to Hinayana, while those of numbers 1, 2, 16, 17, 19 and 26 are related to Mahayana. Unlike the cave temples at Ajanta, those of Ellora are not solely Buddhist. Instead, they follow the development of religious thought in India through the decline of Buddhism in the later half of 8th century, the Hindu Renaissance that followed the return of Gupta dynasty and the Jain resurgence between the 9th and 11th centuries. These caves have been divided into three groups: Buddhist, that is caves 1 to 12, Hindu, that is caves 13 to 29, and Jain, caves 30 to 34. Buddhist caves at Ellora include vihas, that is monasteries, and chaityas, that is chapels, where the monks worshipped. All except cave number 10 are viharas or monastery halls, which the monks would originally use for steady, solitary meditation and communal worship, as well as the mundane business of eating and sleeping. The sculptures and the fresco type paintings, which depict colorful Buddhist legends with exuberance, show the rich tradition of Buddhist art. Buddhist education and women in ancient India. The study about Buddhism and Buddhist education will not be complete if we don't attempt to find out how all these influenced the women in the society. We all know that in ancient India, the position of women was not a happy one. Generally, women were considered to be inferior to men. Freedom of women was extremely limited. The main role of women was considered to be that of housewives. They were destined to be all the household works according to the wishes of their husbands. Women were not given the freedom to educate themselves. Religious freedom was also restricted. As they had only little freedom, their chances for performing meritorious religious rites were very limited. Generally, a woman was considered a burden on the family because the males had to bear the responsibility of looking after her. Besides, she was incapable of performing religious rites for the well-being of the departed parents, and therefore she was considered as being of little use. This is why the birth of a female child was considered as a sign of misfortune in a family. Parents prayed for the birth of sons, both to carry on the family name and the traditions, and also to perform the necessary religious rites for their benefit when they are dead and gone. But Buddhism does not consider women as a being inferior to men. Buddhism, while accepting the biological and physical differences between the two sexes, does consider men and women to be equally useful to the society. The Buddha emphasized the fruitful role of women can play and should play as a wife, a good mother, in making the family life a success. In the family, both husbands and wives are expected to share equal responsibility and discharge their duties with equal dedication. The husband is admonished to consider the wife a friend, a companion, a partner. In family affairs, the wife was expected to be a substitute for the husband when the husband happened to be indisposed. In fact, a wife was expected even to acquaint herself with the trade, business, or industries in which the husband engaged, so that she would be in a position to manage his affairs in his absence. Even though she didn't get much importance in the society as an individual, as a wife, she got almost an equal position with the husband in the Buddhist society. Buddhism does not restrict either the educational opportunities of women or their religious freedom. The Buddha unhesitatingly accepted that women are capable of realizing the truth just as men are. This is why he permitted the admission of women into the order, though he was not in favor of it at the beginning because he thought their admission would create problems in the sasana. Once women proved their capability of managing their affairs in the order, the Buddha recognized their abilities and talents and gave them responsible positions in the Bhikshuni Sangha. The Buddhist texts show the record of eminent saintly Bhikshunis who were very learned and who were experts in preaching the Dhamma. Dhammadina was one such Bhikshuni. Kema and Ubalavanna are two others. The Theri Gada contains numerous stanzas that clearly express the feelings of joy experienced by saintly Bhikshunis at their ability to enter the order and realize the truth. Let us summarize what we have discussed so far. In this study, we have attempted to explain the concept of Buddhism. It is one of the famous religions in the world. Buddha and his ideals contributed much to the world in general. It influenced people in all fields of their life. Our study mainly focused how Buddhist education influenced the people in ancient India. We saw that Buddhist education possessed a democratic nature. It was against all kinds of discrimination based on class, gender and caste. The emergence of Buddhism made education available to the common people also. Later in the study, we have found that the centers of Buddhist education were the monasteries, which were known as Buddhist viharas. We have seen that the monastic education had a specific mode and subject. It was strictly based on some principles and rules. Teachers and students were supposed to obey the laws of the monastery. It is clearly stated in this study that unlike the ancient education system, the Buddhist education considered women as having the right to attain knowledge. So, we can understand from the study that women possessed an equal position with men inside the society.